About 5% of the country's GDP comes from the informal sector, but many traders feel ignored. Brett Hamilton from the University of Stellenbosch and the director of First River Capital agrees with this view. He says even though the sector contributes billions to the economy, they are not considered during policy formulation. This seems to have become more evident during the national lockdown. Well, Brett Hamilton joins me now to discuss this, and he joins us via Skype from Paarl. Mr. Hamilton, thanks for your time. Firstly, do we have the latest figures on how many people from the informal sector are employed and, importantly, how much that sector currently contributes towards the GDP?
Yes, good morning. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, look, because it's the informal sector, it's quite difficult to quantify exactly the size. So the World Bank and Stats SA has this figure of just about 5%. Other economists in private institutions have it sometimes as high as 10% of GDP. The point here is it is a significant section of the economy.
Yeah.
And employment figures, anything in the region between 2 and 3 million people are employed in the informal economy, with about 800 to 900,000 salaried employees.
Yeah.
So I think what is clear, even though we may not have an exact figure, it cannot be denied that the informal sector is a significant component of South Africa's economy.
And you also say, therefore, in your piece, that South Africa's response to the COVID-19 outbreak has shown very clearly what you call, and I quote, unequal treatment and negative perceptions of the informal sector. Are you able to at least give us one or two examples of this?
Yes, so this actually comes from research prior to the crisis, but obviously now it's the same problem that we're facing. So a lot of interventions and policies are focused on the formal economy. Stimulus packages can and usually are only made available through formal networks. And because the informal economy doesn't necessarily have access to these networks, it's very difficult to target these businesses or reach these businesses. So issues that are faced, first of all, is just who are the businesses? What type of assistance do they need? What are the problems that they are facing? And a lot of the times, these interventions require the formalization of these businesses. Yeah. And therein lies the problem. Not that an informal business owner does not want to formalize. It is often the case that they do want to. The only problem is that it requires legal and social services support once you have formalized. So if I have to set up a bank account, how do I do that? If I have to register for UIF, how do I do that? So in some cases, there's an expectation to adhere to rigid policies, but not necessarily the support or guidance offered on how to comply.
Let me ask you this then, Brett. Most of these businesses do not have the kind of money to insure themselves, for example, against the loss of income, and we all know that most of them, they live hand to mouth. How would you say they've been affected by the COVID-19 response in South Africa?
Yes, and this is probably the most significant point, is the fact that these businesses often there are a lot of informal businesses that are successful, that look very similar to formal businesses, but most businesses live hand to mouth, which means they have to operate to survive. Which means from an employment and a business continuity point of view, this crisis has a severe impact on the informal network. These businesses probably need quicker and bigger responses as opposed to the formal network.
Sure.
And The responses have been good. Obviously, government has made available 350 Rand a month for the next 6 months, grants as an example for unemployed individuals. And this will target the informal network, those who are now unemployed. The only problem is this is a blanket approach, which basically means because of the lack of formality, it's not targeted, it's not specific to the needs of an informal business as such, but it simply means that assistance is given in a broad manner. And because it's not targeted to specific business needs, it can't necessarily ensure that businesses will continue to survive in the informal network.
Can I ask you this then? Can I ask you this then quickly? And I'm sorry to cut in, but in the interest of time, I'm going to club these two questions in one. The Small Business Development Ministry, the mandate there is to grow these types of businesses. How would you say they have fared thus far? And then link that to the President's announcement that is expected today. He will likely lift restrictions somewhat on some sectors of the economy. What would your expectations be on the informal sector?
Yes, so the ministry at the moment, there are measures to assist, let's just say stuff like spaza shops, so informal businesses. Again, it requires the formalization of these businesses. So you are expected to register your business at the CIPC. You are expected to have formal employment contracts with your employees. So again, there's an expectation for a business to formalize. And again, I want to reiterate, it doesn't mean that these businesses do not want to formalize, but there will be assistance needed in order for them to better understand what are the rules and regulations that we need to comply with to gain access to this stimulus, to the relief programs, and then how are we going to do that? And that is something that government and business at the moment can assist these businesses with. How do I comply? It could be that beyond the social grant of only 350 Rand a month for unemployed individuals, there could be a more targeted approach to assist. Let's just use the example of spaza shops with stock purchases. If they do employ persons, to assist with salary payments. There could be a more targeted approach here, if possible. That is what I would like to see.
Okay. All right. Brett Hamilton, he's a lecturer in corporate finance at Stellenbosch University, and speaking to us there on the impact of the COVID-19 on the informal sector of the economy. On to